I wear two completely different hats for ADT, one leading our mergers and acquisitions, like bulk acquisition program, and the other leading our public safety relations and outreach program. I joined the industry 12 years ago, working for a startup company that was focused on utilizing video to help verify alarm events. Prioritizing alarms and supplying law enforcement with better information to make more informed decisions for ultimately better outcomes has been a cornerstone and passion of mine since I joined the industry. And I know it's Dave's as well. I know he's not in our industry, but I guess, Dave, you can introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Dave Hall. I'm the current Director of Public Safety for the Lower Island Township Department of Public Safety. I oversee police, fire, and EMS as well. So I retired after 32 years in law enforcement, moved on to the State Emergency Management Association, or PEMA, for like 5 years, and then came back into municipal government to be the public safety director here. So I got involved in the alarm side after probably responding to thousands of these in the course of my career when PPVAR advertised for board positions, and I applied and have been on the board now for 7 years, maybe roughly. And served as president for 2 years. So my passion in the alarm side is because, you know, we do, and we'll get into some of this as we go through the presentation, but we do, in the law enforcement side, respond to a heck of a lot of alarms. And as we've said for a while, under a previous system of just alarms, the alarm is an alarm is an alarm. We got very little information that was often passed down to us. So this was an opportunity to try to make a difference in the alarm side. So that's kind of who I am and why I'm here.
And I'd like to just introduce myself quickly, Jeannie Palmer. I am with PPVAR, just kind of facilitating. These folks are more the experts. I am also with the Colorado Burglar and Fire Alarm Association. And just to let you know that we do a scholarship each year for kids of police officers and firefighters in Colorado, which is being determined right now. But if you have, any need, you can contact me at either the PPVAR or the Colorado Burglar and Fire Alarm Association. Happy to discuss with you anything alarm related. Thanks.
And just in case it wasn't clear, thanks, Jeannie. I also sit on the board for PPVAR, so I represent ADT and PPVAR in this presentation. And Jeannie, since you mentioned it, I am actively going through my grading because I am a scholarship judge for those scholarship awards for the state of California. So lots of work.
Yes.
So as Dave said, I know it may seem like alarm systems and processes are old and antiquated, but over the last several decades, our industry has evolved greatly with new technologies such as video and audio systems. And with this evolution, monitoring centers now have become more sophisticated with the information that we receive and gather from our systems. And it's helped us evaluate our prioritization and our processes internally. We've created efficiencies within our industry. However, we recognize that improvements for the total end-to-end experience cannot be made in isolation. Our success is directly tied to public safety's ability to respond effectively to our alarm systems, which is why we've developed PPVAR, which stands for Partnership for Priority Verified Alarm Response. And it was established to enhance the alarm response process for all stakeholders. And in recognition of the need for collaboration between both industries, we assembled a board that includes representatives from the monitoring industry, the electronic industry, and electronic security industry, and public safety to overcome all those shared challenges. So through this partnership, we've developed standards, educational resources, and training materials that benefit both industries for a more effective and efficient alarm response process. And I can kick us off here, Dave. I'd love your perspective here too, but I'll talk about the challenges in our industry, or I guess everyone should be pretty familiar with the challenges that public safety is facing, and we face it too. And that's anywhere from ECC staffing shortages or shortages on our monitoring centers as well. but we know those could be in excess of 30% on the ECC front. We know that call volume is exceeding capacity of call takers, not having a great or consistent way to help ECCs prioritize, our calls for service. So most alarms have been classified equally, wasting time on already strained resources. Or even worse, the lack of alarm fidelity has encouraged jurisdictions to implement non-response protocols. And I'm sure every single one of those items that you see there in the honeycomb hit home for you as a challenge you face, or that your public safety teammates face. And what I tell my monitoring brothers and sisters again is that our success is still highly dependent on the participation from law enforcement. No response from you guys means no industry for us. And of course, we can try and add, guards and cameras, but those should be choices and supplemental, not requirements to keep people safe. Dave, you have any added comments here?
Sure, Christy. I think one of the things that PPVAR brings to this whole issue is that interface between public safety and the alarm company. So when I joined, I didn't know that. I knew the first thing about the alarm side. So it's been a real eye-opening to understand what the backside is and what the capabilities are. Same token, we've been able to provide a lot of information to the alarm side they didn't understand either. It's we say industry-wide false alarms range from 90 to 99%. That's of the alarms themselves. I will tell you that here, consistently in my agency, the alarm responses, the alarm calls are a majority of the calls we receive. Every month we do those statistics, and every month the top of that curve is the alarm call. So it is a critical issue for us, because every time that you're responding as a law enforcement officer to an alarm call, there's something else that you cannot be doing. So what we really would like to do is drive up the percentage of actuals as opposed to false alarms, and because that helps with manpower and staff deployment as well. So I think that what we did when we talk about AVS-01 is we really kind of added to the verification and to the prioritization of calls, and so far we've had a lot of success story, and we'll see it as we go along. But I think that's the critical part to this. I think we have a better on the public safety side, a better understanding of the alarm industry, and through our participation in this, I think that other side's absolutely true. They have a better understanding of what our restraints are, and we're honored in the PPVAR to have ECC 911 Center board members, as well as ex-chiefs and the police side as well. So there's a really good group there that can speak to all of the issues. So, Christy, go ahead.
Yeah. This page has a lot going on. I always get overwhelmed, but I'll start with the illustration at the top. So this workflow demonstrates some of the gaps with the traditional alarm monitoring process. And starting with step one, the alarm goes off. Signals then are transmitted. Who knows if they are descriptive or helpful enough to actually tell us what's going on? A monitoring agent would then answer, attempt to reach the customer or their listed responsible party. That it's likely an old hierarchy list, probably put in place years ago, not really relative to whomever may be on site or closest to the problem at hand. And then if there was no confirmation that it was a false alarm or a confirmation to cancel that alarm, then we translate that information over to ECCs as a dispatchable event. And through this process, we learned that, again, 98% of those calls we were sending to first responders were false. 70% of the time those calls we were making were going unanswered, costing public resources, businesses, or customers around $2 billion. And we weren't really giving first responders any rich information to provide situational awareness or prioritize the alarms based on the data that we can see at our center. So now we've got a little smarter. We can now install devices that have audio video. We can also specifically through ADT. And I know some other national monitoring providers offer this too, but we have SMS notifications that we deploy to all of the contact list at the same time, which has increased engagement and further reduced the number of cancellation requests without needing to make that phone call. So those items help the overall cause, but what we're really here to talk about today is a new industry standard called AVS-01 that was developed to help agencies quickly identify the priority or criticality of an alarm, and then also some of the other standards that we're working on as well to respond to those combined industry challenges.
So with PPVAR's response to the combined industry challenges was proper response to alarms has to be managed, and it has to be maintained for a public trust. And also there's a huge component of public service trust and public safety trust as well. So despite the high rate of what were the false alarms, as we've talked about, officers have to stay vigilant. They have to be responsive to those alarms, and they have to be kind of ensured to some level that their genuine threats are not overlooked. Their officer safety is involved in every single response you make, almost. So, well, the coordination of standards, the standard creation. When this discussion happened during a PMA session several years ago, PPVAR looked at and talked about developing a standard to address alarm challenges by prioritizing essentially those alarms. So the alarm validation scoring standard became one of the things that we worked on. And that committee actually was comprised of public safety folks, as well as alarm side folks. And for 2 years, that committee met and actually worked through this process. And it took a number of different iterations to get to where we got to with a final standard. But thankfully, we came out with what we think is a very strong threat level standard that encourages police departments to respond to the alarms, because it gives them additional information in that response. By priority, they can prioritize their response based upon that information and the level of the standard. So it was TMA is an ANSI organization. So they were the one that we work with for AVS-01. And that was actually then accepted as a standard and moved out. So the automated secure alarm protocol ASAP is also TMA, and we've incorporated this standard as a part of the ASAP to PSAP process as well. So,
and if I can just clarify for everybody, TMA is the Monitoring Association. They're the ANSI standard body. Which is why PPVAR went with them to get the standard approved.
So what ASAP does is it transmits electronic data, and it speeds up and it helps with the distribution of that. The alarm center puts the alarm information into the ASAP protocol, and that is delivered directly to the ECC PSAP. And I've heard estimates of seconds from the time it's entered and hit transmit till it's received. So it saves that 7-digit phone call to most ECCs, and it's information is put directly into their CAD. So as I said, it streamlines that communication, improves alarm response. So in the education and training area, PPVAR frequently attends public safety events. We host webinars. We've developed white papers. We provide educational information materials to stakeholders. Even while the standard was being developed, we hit the conference trail from coast to coast, and actually have done published papers within some of the public safety organization journals, and have gone out and done these things, and much like we're doing now that it's in effect. But PPVAR tries to optimize that alarm response and manage risks effectively, and it supports both sides. I think so. That's I think the strength of PPR and our contribution. Next slide.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, and just to expand a little bit more, as we stated, AVS-01 is a universal standard for alarm communication that allows us to classify alarm events based on the severity in a clear and repeatable way from monitoring center to ECC. There are 5 alarm classification levels that range in urgency from no call to service to a confirmed threat to life. As you can see in the level explanations on the screen, alarm level 0 means no call for police response, means that situation has been completely resolved between the customer and the monitoring center and no further assistance is needed. Alarm level 1 is a request for service with little or no information provided. Your typical, zone 1, front door, back door, glass break, with no additional context. Alarm level 2 is a police response request with confirmed or highly probability of human presence with unknown intent. So we see somebody or we know somebody's on site. They aren't actively vandalizing or taking anything from the home or the property. We just know someone's on site. Very helpful for situational awareness. Alarm level 3 is a police request with confirmed threat to property. So we see that there is someone physically there on site damaging property, and then or we either see or someone tells us that they see that. And then alarm level 4 is the most severe, and it is a request for police response with confirmed threat to life. So there is a known issue with somebody's life and they need immediate assistance.
The levels kind of developed when during the committee discussion, we said, well, how would the police respond anyhow? Well, one is a very routine response, which is, I will get there as fast when I can get there because I have other things going on, but it's not necessarily immediate and or urgent or emergent. So that could be the level 1. I'm certainly and my officers are certainly going to step up their response to a level 2 because there is someone there. We just don't know if it's a friend or if it's a foe. So they're going to respond with a little bit more situational awareness and a little more caution upon arrival. Alarm level 3 is a true emergency response, as is a 4, because someone's in jeopardy with a 4. So it just helps provide prioritization information and information to the responding officer or the supervisor who's assigning officers to respond in terms of how they do that. The benefit, which we just seen recently where there was a sheriff's office we were aware of that said we're not responding to alarms anymore. One of our board members, who's also an ECC director, made a contact with that sheriff and explained this system, and the sheriff said, "Okay, then we'll respond to 3s and 4s." So it definitely has had some impact, a positive impact in the decision to respond or not respond from the public safety side.
All right. Go ahead, Dave.
So what we did as we were putting this together is we said, well, how are we going to get the knowledge out to public safety? And so essentially we thought that every PSAP has a different training program, but the basic tenets of ABS-01 were in the standard as it was codified. And we said, so what we really need to do is put out an awareness video, and that awareness explains the system and it explains the why. It's going to say, well, why do I need to know about this, and how is this going to impact my organization? And so we PPVAR, working with a vendor, developed this, and we put it out free flow. It's on the websites, but it's available, and we thought we'd give you the opportunity to see it here today if you haven't seen it already.
There are about 5,500 emergency communication centers nationwide that handle hundreds of millions of emergency calls annually. This number includes a significant number of intrusion alarm calls, though there are hundreds of monitoring centers calling into the ECCs. To date, there is no standard or unified verbal communication protocol used for effectively and precisely communicating intrusion alarm calls to ECCs. Responding to alarm calls creates demands on staffing and budgets and can jeopardize the safety of first responders while straining community emergency resources. This is why it is vital to have a universal standard for how these calls are communicated and received to best process the millions of events that occur annually. The security industry and public safety have come together to discover solutions that improve safety, situational awareness, and verification for both first responders and citizens. Introducing ABS-01, a new initiative to help solve this problem. ABS-01 stands for the Alarm Validation Scoring Standard and is an ANSI standard. ANSI is the American National Standards Institute, a private, nonprofit organization that administers and coordinates the U.S. voluntary standards and conformity assessment system. ABS 01 is a collaborative effort by groups from the alarm industry, monitoring industry, law enforcement, and public safety. It will standardize information communicated by a monitoring center to an ECC when requesting a call for services, not limited to only alarm signals, but also including data from video, audio, and other emerging technologies. The creation of the Alarm Validation Scoring Standard will help by standardizing the alarm notification process to ECC's PSAPs from central stations. A standardized process will add enhanced scrutiny to alarm analysis and result in relaying consistent improved call information. This standard will bring greater clarity and efficiency to the alarm response process. To learn more about ABS 01 and how it can relate to public safety and ECCs, visit tma.us or ppvar.org.
So we have made that available. It's out there. It's on the website. It's downloadable. ECCs, PSAPs, police departments across the country can download it, put it into their training, and become aware of what ABS 01 is and work along with the alarm companies.
There are about 55.
So next slide.
All right. So for the next couple of slides, I'll dive into a little bit about what ADT has been doing specifically. So at ADT, our strategy for implementing ABS 01 from the very beginning has been to collaborate with public safety. We initiated a pilot program, I think that was in the summer of 2023. And then that allowed us to gather early and valuable feedback to establish best practices and tools for our national launch. We went national, I believe, May of last year or April of last year, but to ensure the effectiveness of that standard, we recognize the importance of educating PSAPs about the purpose and benefits of ABS 01. It's pretty challenging. Monitoring centers don't necessarily have a database consisting of, the right contacts needed to deliver this information, but we invested in a third-party database to help facilitate these communications. We were able to, make about 3,000 calls. We probably engaged and got confirmation that we educated about 1,500 PSAPs. We emailed all 6,000 that we were able to gather emails for, but ADT is pretty, I was going to say hell-bent, but I don't know if that's kosher. Said it anyways, but we feel very strongly that education is an important part of this process. So if you guys hear of somebody that is less familiar with ABS 01 in addition to PPVAR, ADT is happy to step in. But through this process, we've built some relationships, right? So we've been able to solicit feedback and participate in more public safety events to try and nurture those relationships. And we've been able to develop additional tools to understand more insights about ABS 01. So in the bottom left, you'll see that we developed a heat map to track trends and analyze the various alarm levels. And just to give you an idea of what the map, how to read the map, all those little dots that you see there, those are 911 centers that received less than 10 alarm level 3s and 4s over the course of the last 12 months since we launched. The medium-sized or larger circle represents an ECC that received anywhere between 10 and 25 alarms over the last 12 months. So as you can see nationwide, and even in the chart that I have from January to present, there are not very many alarm level 3s and 4s nationwide. So like double clicking into that a little bit more, you'll see that the majority of our alarms are still in that level 1, not a lot of information category at around 88%, with alarm level 2s around 3%, and alarm level 3s and 4s combined under 1%. So these data trends seem to be consistent with what we're hearing from other monitoring providers as well. And we believe if this continues, that this supports or shows supporting evidence that a priority response should be considered for alarm levels 2 through 4, since there aren't as many of them. Hopefully it won't put the same strain on your guys' resources, but also help protect people and property. If you look at the heat map and we zoom into Colorado specifically, you'll see that they've only received a total of 8 alarm level 3s and 4s over the course of 12 months. So you can see some are 3s, some are 4s. But actually, if I go to the next page, there we go. I was going to try and talk to some of the specifics there, but I think it's helpful for obviously we call out several of the 3s and 4s that are from Colorado, but I think this actually provides the evidence or the details from those events, so you can actually see that in most cases these customers are viewing cameras and clearly see that there's a crime in progress. So Dave will talk about a little later the UL standards associated with ABS-01 and the auditing process associated. But this further highlights that, the 3s and 4s are actuals. And this is what they looked like. Earlier this year, we handled, and this is another just success story example, we handled a burglary event at a small business in San Jose. And while verifying the incident, the customer who was offsite again reviewed those cameras, saw that there were 3 individuals attempting to break in. We classified that as an alarm level 3 because there was human presence, and we saw that there was somebody trying to break in, so threat to property. And when we followed up with San Jose PD, we learned that they didn't apprehend anybody. They weren't able to catch them, but they were able to successfully retrieve a stolen vehicle. They nearly apprehended the suspect, but they were at least able to retrieve that vehicle. And they stated that because they were in our pilot and because they got the alarm level 3, they did take action to respond to that with a higher priority, and it led to a positive outcome. Most of the feedback from our pilots when we were doing ABS-01 or initially implementing it were overwhelmingly positive, particularly regarding like the impact on situational awareness. They've emphasized that it provides critical information related to officer safety, and they're able to make real-time updates. So far, everything, when we've been fully engaged with the ECC, it's been positive. Dave, I think you have some additional information coming up about how receptive other industry organizations have been about the standard. But from my perspective at EDT, everyone seems to be overwhelmingly excited about implementation. And so we're relaying that feedback even to our monitoring or industry for increased adoption on that side as well. So that way they can continue to implement and ECCs can receive the benefit of ABS-01.
Well, and what just to add on to what Christy's saying there, one of the things that I became so interested in the ABS-01 possibilities was because when I started here 8 years ago, in the first year, we had about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, an alarm come in, which we would classify now as a level 1 alarm at a local motorcycle dealership. And I had 3 officers respond to that just as they would to a regular activation. It was not an emergency response. And when they got there, they saw the front door glass broken in and discovered it had cameras, but they didn't go to an alarm company. Only the audible or the fact that there was a break-in went there. They thought it was just a sensor. When they went and looked at the video, they actually saw the truck with a trailer back up to the door, saw them sledgehammer out the window, and 8 motorcycles went out the door into the truck, and they were gone within 3 minutes. And the officer who saw that, when the owner came out and played the video, said, "I saw that truck. I passed it coming in here just before it got onto the interstate and headed to Baltimore." We never did recover those motorcycles, but when the fact that this could have been a level 3 or level 4, and we could have made an apprehension, just added to my interest in making sure that this standard comes up and it gets distributed and utilized. So when we all know that, and that we have those kind of stories left and right, But that's one of the reasons why PPVAR and the Monitoring Association, as you can see at the beginning, started that development in 23 and formed that committee. And it was, like as I said earlier, it was both alarms, folks and public safety folks that worked on this for 2 years. While we were having this discussion, we said, well, what are we going to do in order to certify the program? And UL stepped up to the plate and said that they would develop a certification program for that. And then in order to basically have the industry of the public safety side come out and endorse it, we went to the National Sheriff's Association and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Both of them approved a resolution approving AVS 01. The National Sheriff's Association did that in June of 24. ICP did that in October of 24 at their national meeting. So the certification for UL is to maintain the integrity. The standard is a voluntary standard. The certification is voluntary, but it helps promote public safety through compliance. And UL Solutions just goes in and for any organization, any monitoring center that has said we are going to voluntarily participate in the program, they will go in and do show the demonstration of compliance to AVS 01, subject to that subsequent UL audits of that compliance process. But again, that's all voluntary. Next slide.
I think this one's you, Dave.
The next slide.
Oh. This one?
Yeah, there we are. Okay, so again, we talked about the PPVAR educational videos. That the short little 2-minute one is the one we showed you, but there is a longer one also, about 12 minutes. They're all accessible on the YouTube site for public safety. And then there's also a video that we have for ECCs and public safety as well. And then new TMA, the Monitoring Association, has put together for monitoring center personnel an excellent, actually we participate in this too, but they maintain it, an excellent training for stakeholders for monitoring center operators as well. There's also some other things available with TMA logo postcards. We've done white papers, and we've done some landing pages for monitoring centers as well. So the whole idea is to get the message out and move and have this adopted as an industry-wide standard, and have public safety understand it and put it into their logistics of their response procedures as well. So it's gaining momentum. We knew it was going to be slow to start since it's voluntary, but we've seen it. We've seen the benefit, and we've seen it being utilized now on both sides.
All right, I think we're swiveling to ASAP. So we touched on this slightly already. ASAP to PSAP has been around since 2011. This was a standard developed in collaboration between APCO and the Monitoring Association, so TMA again. I believe many who use this feature today within Colorado, but for those that are unfamiliar, ASAP to PSAP in essence allows us to place a request for dispatch electronically from our monitoring automation platforms directly into the CAD, bypassing that need to make a telephone request for service. It increases the efficiencies for both the monitoring company and ECCs while clearly and accurately sending the pertinent information over regarding the customer situation. This obviously leads into many other key benefits like faster emergency response times, reduced inbound call volume for 911 centers, improved accuracy with less human intervention and opportunity for error. I'm not the expert on this topic, but I do know that Mission Critical Partners has joined in collaboration with the TMA to release a new updated version of ASAP to PSAP, or help get the word out of added features and benefits that will ease the onboarding process and functionality of what's been traditional ASAP. So hopefully that results in increased adoption and less challenges in getting set up. So currently you'll see here that there are 24 states that are actively enabled with ASAP to PSAP. Um, as you know, your state looks like your entire state is green, but what I do know is that you've got approximately 5 911 centers that are currently participating and receiving the benefits of that electronic dispatch. So I'm not sure within each of those states that are bright green what jurisdictions are utilizing ASAP to PSAP, but we know that they are at least there is at least some participation within those states, and others are becoming ready and are in the process. And here's an example of a home invasion incident. This is really to help capture or show the benefit in being able to relay that information electronically. And there's a lot of detail here about the sequence of events, but just to quickly summarize, there was a holdup incident that was actually triggered by the customer. And the monitoring center attempted to place that call for dispatch a couple of different times. And there were subsequent events that were coming through, and the alarm or the monitoring operator had to discontinue the call and try again. And fast forward 45 minutes later, police finally arrived on scene. I'm not even sure at that point if it was from our attempts and intervention or if there was another event that caused them to arrive. But nonetheless, the customer, let us know that it took 45 minutes from the initial trigger. We see some of that here in this timeline. And unfortunately, that they're having to ask us why it took so long when it was a confirmed home invasion. So long story short, we hope and we believe that this scenario could have been processed much more quickly. Most definitely if it was processed through ASAP to PSAP using the electronic method, as well as if we had information in there indicating that it was an alarm level 4 threat to life. So would have been a completely different, well, we would hope it would have been a completely different outcome. And that's our direction, right? We want to be able to communicate quickly and succinctly and with prioritization when we know there's a threat to life.
And this might be one of those things that happens every now and then. I will tell you that our response to those in the 3s and the 4s and even the 2s in some cases is under 4 minutes. And I think that's probably true countywide. And so the more information you have, the more you know to prioritize and step up the emergency response to that event.
Love that.
So we had such success with AVS-01 that the industry actually said, well, what about when we're receiving active threat notifications? And so these are not tied to AVS-01. Right now, it's a separate standard. At some point, we may determine how we could link them together. But the committee was formed again to do TMA's ATN-01 standard, and that's monitoring center notification of active threat detection. Because the industry was saying, well, I get these active threats, but I don't know how to do this in terms of transmitting them. So the goal of the standard was to significantly enhance the synergy, again, between the security industry and public safety, get a safer environment through more informed and more rapid responses to active threats. So we sat down with the industry side and took a look at what type of sensors would go into active threat. And so the standard outlined this uniform approach to handling active threat events, acknowledged integrated various detection things, including record keeping, data management, and process monitoring. So by categorizing these actual threats on a confirmation levels, public safety can prioritize, again, their responses more effectively. And these can be like things like gunshot or weapons detection, manual lockdowns, ELISA's alerts, and it was put out for a 60-day public comment. That period closed on April 1. We did get some comments. And the process after this will be to reconvene the committee and go through each one of those comments one by one and determine if the standard needs to be altered in some way or whether it will be put forward in whatever that final form is. So I was honored again to co-chair the committee on the public safety side with Mark McCall, who's the current PPVAR president, and works for IMEX. So that's soon ready to come out through the ANSI process. So what's next in terms of opportunities? Well, your support, your participation increases the strength of our voice, the ability to accomplish our goals. Technology regulations are changing every day. PPVAR is actively addressing this nationwide trend of using new and existing technologies to protect customers. And the great part about AVS-01 was we designed it so it didn't have to have automation as a requirement. Automation vendors can write to the standard, but we said it was important to have a smaller operation, manual operator be able to score it based upon general concepts and say, well, the facts I'm getting here puts it in this bucket, in the 2 bucket, or the 3 bucket, or the 4. And the standard spells that out, I think, pretty well, and so does the training that TMA did also. So distribute information about AVS-01. We joined educational opportunities, and we certainly welcome this. We thank you for being able to provide us the opportunity to talk about these things. So the presentation will be shared along with the materials and links to the websites for additional information. You can join our newsletter for upcoming events. We urge protocol vendors to include this leveling for law enforcement alarm protocol processing. My 911 center here is saying if they receive from the alarms company a level, they will put that out to officers. So it is a slow growth process as more alarm companies adopt the standard. Our 911 centers across the country are receiving that, and then they're transmitting that back out to field personnel to determine their response protocol. So we would urge vendors to include that leveling, as I said, and we have if you've seen some of the materials we have for education and sharing ideas. And if you have through that any way that you can better route alarm level 3s and 4s, we welcome to hear those as well.
Yeah, and just to highlight some of the upcoming events and speaking engagements remaining for 2025 that we'll be participating at. I know this is the Colorado Task Force, so Florida and California might not apply per se, but we welcome any and all members to join us for our membership meeting in July. And we hope that if you are at APCO or IACP later this year, that we can find time to meet in person and, collaborate a little bit more. We've got our contact. Oh, I thought I had UL on here. I don't know what happened there, guys. I'm sorry about that, but I've got Dave and my contact information available on this page. If you want to scan our QR code right there, that'll take you to our landing page. Again, I urge you guys to sign up for our newsletter for all of our, industry standard updates and any upcoming events that we may be able to cross paths on. And we can also provide UL. So I know that we've brought UL up and they have a feedback loop there too. So that way you can provide any inputs regarding the standards directly to UL as well. So,
and on this page that takes you, there is a page for public safety specifically, but you can go to anything, but there is a form on the website. If you want to reach out to us and say, add me to your newsletter, or hey, we're happy to join, or whatever, you could do that right on that page.
Wonderful. Any questions from the audience?
Thanks, Christy. I would just, I wonder if there's any of our participants on the call today that are using ASAP to PSAP, and do they have any feedback? Well, I very, very much appreciate all of you being here and this presentation. I think ASAP to PSAP has demonstrated, a much quicker way to transmit information from the alarm centers over to the PSAPs, and the alarm scoring is definitely helpful especially as more and more law enforcement agencies adopt that. So thank you very much for your participation. And did you have anything else to add?
Nothing further from my end.
Just thank you very much, Jennifer, for coordinating this for us. And we're happy to, work with public safety anytime.
We're very happy you're here, and we very much appreciate the presentation. So this will be posted up on our YouTube channel, and I can provide a slide deck and contact information to our task force members. And I very much appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everybody.